My name is Hannah Bubb, and I'm going to be giving a fourth opposition speech on the motion, "This House prefers a world in which humans can opt into a technology that eliminates their ability to feel negative emotions." But before I do that, I really want to thank the people on the committee who are reviewing and considering this video. Thank you so much for all your work. And then I want to go over the anticipated arguments on proposition and opposition. So for proposition, the anticipated arguments are first, the right to choice, secondly, boosting citizens' mental health, and thirdly, inspiring innovation. And on opposition, the arguments are firstly, devaluing the human experience, secondly, creating social change, and thirdly, the importance of personal accountability. In proposition's world, we see that people's voices are silenced as their dissent is pacified by a false promise of a happier life. You can never vote for a world in which this is the reality, and it's because of that we will always oppose. In this speech, just a few things. First, we're going to be going over what the proposition's world looks like, before some characterizations in op's world, and finally some voters on why you always choose op. But first, let's look to proposition's world, where superficial joy is prioritized over the progression of human experience, morality, and basic rights. Just 2 points here. Firstly, from the beginning of today's round, we told you that eliminating negative emotion cuts out a vital part of the human experience, so then proposition is always morally reprehensible because feeling a full scale of emotions is a prerequisite to any moral action. Here they tell you that opt-in means you have the choice of emotions and what you want to feel. We disagree. People's choice is limited in proposition's world because even if people do opt in, when social circumstances inevitably change and they might want to opt out, they no longer have the ability to do so because they don't feel dissatisfaction with their life, they just feel a false sense of joy. But then, we think that you must feel emotions like regret and shame, which come from experiencing sadness and pain, and you can't experience the sadness of other people's experiences, and you can't feel empathy. We think this always led to more immoral action. Secondly, we told you from our second substantive that people make change when the status quo sparks negative emotion, otherwise they're not motivated to change a world in which they're already satisfied. In proposition's world, we don't see the change that appears when people feel grief, loss, and sadness. It remains static. But then, let's look at the world of the opposition. This is a world that prioritizes real change over giving citizens a distorted sense of emotion. This world, people do give up like a sense of superficial joy, but then what they gain is much more valuable. Firstly, in opposition's world, we see the reality of injustice being recognized by citizens, which is always the only way we see progress in the improvement of human rights and the weakening of social disparity. From this, citizens gain tangible change in their lives, and here the proposition tells you that people can only innovate further when they are free of burnout and stress. Remember what we told you throughout today's round. Firstly, it's only through negative emotions that citizens actually realize there's a problem in need of solving or innovation. But secondly, real change only happens when people are dissatisfied enough to protest, enough to invent, enough to change the conditions of their community. This cannot happen with a limited emotional range. So then this means that the opposition is the only side that protects social movements which are motivated by dissatisfaction of the status quo. This is movements like protesting in gender-based violence in Latin America, the Bangladesh workers movement which protects workers against abuse, this US civil rights movement, BLM, anti-apartheid, Me Too. This list goes on and on. Finally, opposition's world is the only one that fits under the principle of never limiting the range of human emotion to excuse immoral behavior, which is a prerequisite for a principally just society that maintains checkbacks and allows constituents to advocate for their human rights through protest, through dissent, that can never be silenced. Now, let's move into some voters. Firstly, you vote on protecting citizens' access to the full breadth of human experience because that's always a prerequisite to moral action, but then you vote on the long-term change that results from effective social movements that never happened on proposition's world. We think we are the only world that actually protects citizens' rights, so we are the only world that you can vote for.